Hey guys, tonight we drift back to a world shimmering with marble temples, sandal straps, and the scent of olive oil baked into the dust. You're in Babylonius, that Babylon walking slowly through an open palace courtyard under the torch flickering. Night. You can hear water trickling in tiled channels, frogs murmuring somewhere nearby, and a few stressed-out scribes arguing in low tones. The great king lies behind that curtain, Alexander, the one who sliced through Persia like a kebab, skewer through lamb. And he's dying. You probably won't survive this either emotionally, at least because the man they called a living god is about to blink out. And the fallout will make a Game of Thrones season finale look like a polite dinner party. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand near the back wall of Alexander's chamber. The air is thick with incense and panic. Physicians hover nearby, their hands empty because nothing works. For days, he's been burning up with fever, speech slurred, eyes wild. Rumors ripple out like waves on the Euphrates. Poison, divine. Punishment, or just plain overwork. Historians still argue whether it was malaria, typhoid, or a revenge plot slow brewing in his wine goblet. He's 32. 32, and he's conquered everything from Greece to India, leaving a trail of cities named Alexandria like glitter spilled across the ancient world. You shift uncomfortably on your feet. It's hard to imagine what happens when a man like that one, who's been propped up by gods, poets, and a very powerful PR team, just stops. Eventually, his breathing changes. People start whispering. The generals are called in. You move closer with the others, kneeling slightly. His eyes flicker open, but he doesn't speak. Someone leans down, asks, "To whom does the empire go?" He whispers to the strongest, or maybe it was to Crateros, his most loyal commander. Hard to tell. Either way, he dies before clarifying, and that one moment lights the fuse on 40 years of backstabbing chaos. You step back now. Out of the palace. The hot Babylonian night presses around you, full of sounds. A distant camel bleating, the rustle of palm fronds. The careful shuffle of someone slipping away to draft a will. Alexander's body still lies inside, but everyone's already thinking about what comes next. There's no clear air. His half-brother, Philipparidius, is mentally unfit to rule and also possibly epileptic. His wife Roxana is pregnant, but the baby hasn't even been born yet. So what do the great generals do? They agree to share power, obviously. And if you believe that plan was ever going to work, I have a gently used trireme to sell you. You follow. Ptolemy, one of Alexander's oldest friends, as he steps out into the courtyard. He's quiet, calculating, probably already thinking about Egypt. Over there, Seleucus is fiddling with a map that stretches from Syria to the edges of India. Antigonus eyes Macedon like it's a particularly juicy kebab. Perdiccas, the designated regent, claims he'll rule for the unborn child, but he starts acting like king real fast. You see the first cracks forming as generals hold secret meetings. Soldiers whisper in the barracks. And somewhere near the stables, a guard gets stabbed because he looked too loyal to the wrong guy. One day, you're walking past a courtyard pool and overhear two administrators arguing about coinage. The next day, you're standing in a full-on civil war. It happens fast. These men had followed Alexander into the jaws of Persia, over the mountains of Afghanistan, and down into the steamy banks of the Indus. But they won't follow each other. Each one believes he deserves a piece of the world, not a province, not a governorship, a kingdom. You sleep fitfully that night, curled in a corner of the palace, surrounded by whispered rumors and dreams of elephants in battle armor. The city smells like burning papyrus and spoiled wine. Outside the gates, messengers gallop through dust clouds, carrying orders that will lead to sieges, betrayals, and a few very creative assassinations. Meanwhile, in a quieter corner of the world's philosophers already start bickering about what it all means. Did Alexander spread Greek culture or destroy everything in his path? Is Hellenism the flowering of civilization, or just a really aggressive travel brochure with swords? Now, and there's the real twist. Alexander didn't just bring soldiers. He brought language, art, and infrastructure. Wherever he went, he left roads, trade routes, theaters even, gymnasiums, because, apparently, he can't conquer without cardio. But did he really unite East and West or just mash them together in a way that would never hold? Back in Babylon, his body lies in a golden sarcophagus, and nobody can agree what to do with it. Build a tomb here. Take it back to Macedon. Eventually, it gets hijacked, but we'll come back to that. For now, you're just trying to keep your head down because the generals are sharpening their ambitions. And nothing makes you sleepier than the soft snick of a dagger being drawn in the dark. And somewhere, in the shimmering desert haze, the Hellenistic world begins not with trumpets, but with the slow unraveling of a dead man's dream. Morning. Breaks over Babylon like a drumbeat. You wake to the smell of crushed time and stale anxiety. Outside, Perdiccas is giving orders that sound suspiciously like war prep, but all in the name of keeping the peace. Of course, nothing says stability like horse-mounted couriers dashing in every direction with scrolls sealed in panic wax. The empire, technically, still exists. On paper, anyway. In practice, it's like someone dropped a priceless vase and now everyone's arguing over who gets the biggest shard. You wander through the palace corridors where bronze shields line the walls like awards from a very violent school play. The Diadochi Alexander's successors have begun carving up the world. Perdiccas names himself regent for the unborn child. That sounds noble until he starts shoving other generals aside like toddlers fighting over crayons. You pass a balcony where Ptolemy is already plotting to grab Egypt and make it his personal sandcastle. Antigonus hovers in the wings with eyes like twin daggers, waiting for anyone to flinch. It's not long before swords come out. First quietly, then loudly. Perdiccas decides to march on Egypt to humble Ptolemy. He doesn't make it. His own troops stab him to death mid-campaign, which really puts a damper on morning morale. You sip water from a clay cup while listening to a soldier explain, cheerfully, how Perdiccas tried to cross the Nile on rafts. Spoiler, crocodiles got involved. Nature had notes. With Perdiccas out, chaos blossoms like mold in a bathhouse. Antipater takes over in Macedon. Lysimachus snaps up Thrace. Seleucus lays low for now, but you can tell he's biding his time like a tiger in tall grass. Everyone wants to look like they're restoring order, but it's more like a bunch of guys yelling, "Mine." In ancient Greek, you end up following Eumenes, a general who actually liked Alexander and tries to stay loyal to his legacy. Problem is, he's a Greek, not a Macedonian. The others don't trust him, despite the fact that he wins some impressive battles using elephants and psychological warfare. Like convincing his troops, Alexander's ghost is watching. Creepy, yes. Effective, also yes. Historians still argue whether he truly believed it or was just a genius manipulator with a flair for the dramatic. But loyalty doesn't get you far in this new world. Eumenes is eventually betrayed by his own officers. You watch him get handed over to Antigonus, who surprise locks him in a cave and lets him starve. Rough end, especially for a man who once edited Alexander's personal letters. Eumenes had hoped to build a legacy of unity. Instead, he becomes a footnote, whispered in the breeze that drifts through broken colonnades. Meanwhile, the Diadochi hold a series of peace conferences that go about as well as you'd expect. Swords under the table, poison in the goblets, and someone always walks out with a new scar. They keep redrawing the map like it's a board game, each man claiming legitimacy through marriages, adoptions, or increasingly fake-sounding titles. One even calls himself King of Asia. The rest of the room bursts out laughing and then declares war. You drift west now. Walking through wheat fields as Macedonian soldiers shuffle home only to be marched out again in yet another campaign. Back in Pella, old women mutter that Alexander's ghost haunts the palace. And honestly, with this much betrayal in the air, you'd haunt it too. The scent of garlic and sweat mixes with prophecies from twitchy oracles and astrologers reading. Too much into goat livers. The population. Tired, farmers just want to grow barley. Fishermen just want their nets untangled. But the elites keep reaching for greatness, like toddlers reaching for swords too short and too loud. Still, these civil wars shape the ancient world in ways we still trace today. Here's something weird you notice along the way. War elephants. Lots of them. Ported from India, trained in parades, and used like battering rams in fancy armor. They become the tanks of the Hellenistic age, but they're not invincible. One famously panics mid-battle and squashes half its own side before wandering off into a grove. That general retired shortly after, citing emotional stress. The longer the wars go on, the more each general starts ruling like a king in his own right. Not governors, but full-blown monarchs, complete with crowns, coins bearing their faces, and enough ego to fill an amphitheater. Ptolemy in Egypt builds temples. Seleucus starts founding cities. Even Antigonus, old and crusty as sour wine, starts using the royal we. You pause in a windswept pass in Anatolia, where Antigonus is building his empire, annoying everyone in the process. Eventually, the others gang up on him. In the Battle of Ipsus 301 BCE, Antigonus is defeated. He's over 80 years old by then. You imagine him falling with a sword in one hand and a curse in the other. His death marks the moment when the empire truly fractures. No more pretending it's one big, happy family. It's now multiple kingdoms, each ruled by one of Alexander's old gang minus the Hugs. The main players left standing: Ptolemy in Egypt, Seleucus in the east, Lysimachus in Thrace, and Cassander in Macedon. A little like a dysfunctional boy band where everyone wants a solo career. The strange thing? Amid the chaos, culture still blooms. Temples go up. Statues get carved. Trade networks stretch from Athens to the Ganges. But that's a story for another night. For now, the map has changed. The dream of a single Hellenistic empire lies buried under sand, ambition, and about 12 metric tons of irony. Asterisk, you squint into the sun as your sandals crunch across the Nile Delta, brushing past tall papyrus reeds and little clouds of dust stirred by donkey carts. It's hot, but not dead. Desert hot. This is Egypt, lush and humming with ancient rhythms. Except now, things are a little Greek. Overhead, banners flutter bearing names you recognize. Not Ramses or Thutmose, but Ptolemy. Yes. The same Ptolemy who once rode beside Alexander, jotting notes and maybe exaggerating a little to make himself look cool. Now, he's Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And somehow, he pulled it off without being lynched by priests or eaten by crocodiles. Impressive. You trail him through the bustling city of Alexandria. His sparkling capital on the coast city not even 20 years old, but already dreaming of immortality. Ptolemy took it over from Alexander's original blueprints and made it the glittering jewel of his new Egyptian-Greek hybrid kingdom. It's got wide streets, an orderly grid layout. Take that, winding alleyways. And ports so deep you can practically park a trireme blindfolded. But here's the real flex. Alexander's body is not in Macedon, where it technically belongs. Nope, it's here. In a fancy glass coffin, in a fancy tomb, because Ptolemy hijacked the funeral procession. True story. The corpse was en route. Back to the ancestral homeland when Ptolemy swooped in, redirected the caravan, and stashed Alexander's remains in Memphis. Later, he moved the sarcophagus to Alexandria, basically saying, if I can't be him, I can at least own him. Bold, morbid. Very on -brand. Egypt, for all its sand and sphinxes, takes surprisingly well to the change. Ptolemy doesn't steamroll the old traditions, he cops them. He dresses like a pharaoh when it counts, makes sacrifices to Egyptian gods, and commissions temples where Horus and Apollo shake hands like awkward co-workers. His coins bear both Greek inscriptions and Egyptian iconography. It's assimilation, but with a really sharp haircut. Ptolemy is shrewd enough not to chase too much territory. He's not trying to conquer the world. He just wants Egypt tanned to keep it. That strategy pays off. While other Diadochi bleed themselves dry in endless battles, he stabilizes, builds, and writes. Yep, he pens a history of Alexander's campaigns. Naturally, he gives himself a glowing review. Historians still argue whether his account is reliable or just royal fanfiction. You spend an evening wandering the library of Alexandria, the massive version yet, but the beginnings of it. Shelves grown with scrolls imported from Athens, Persia, even India. Ptolemy starts gathering knowledge like a magpie with a PhD. He brings in scholars, poets, engineers. The vibe is halfway between a university campus and a monastery full of gossip. One corner smells like ink and rose oil. In another, a philosopher is yelling about atoms, while a priest of Thoth looks deeply unimpressed. Ptolemy's goal: to make Alexandria not just a city, but the brain of the world. Ambitious, sure. But kind of cozy, too. Outside, the Pharos Lighthouse is under construction, soon to be one of the 7 wonders. For now, it's scaffolding and yelling. But you can already picture the 3-tiered tower rising from the island of Pharos like a celestial lighthouse, summoning lost ships and overworked historians. And just when you're starting to feel like things might finally chill out, Ptolemy starts succession planning. That's where it gets weird. See, Ptolemy had kids, lots of them. But the one he wants to succeed him isn't his firstborn. It's Ptolemy II, by his second wife, Bernice. You sense the drama even before it bubbles to the surface whispers in the palace halls, scribes writing names and then scratching them out. Eventually, Ptolemy retires peacefully, a rare thing among the Diadochi, and hands power to his favorite son. The Ptolemaic dynasty begins. And spoiler alert, they name every male ruler Ptolemy. Every single one. It's like a royal family with a broken name generator. Ptolemy II, 3, 4, all the way to 13 and beyond. There are even Cleopatra version Cs, that Cleopatra comes later, but we'll get there. Each Ptolemy continues the delicate act of blending cultures. Some embrace Egyptian tradition more than others. One even marries his sister because that's what pharaohs do, and he really wants that divine legitimacy. Scholars debate whether it was politically brilliant or just. Meanwhile, Egypt thrives. For now. Agriculture booms thanks to the Nile's regular flooding. Alexandria becomes a hub for trade, science, and slightly awkward cultural fusion. You sit on a stone bench near a marketplace where a Greek soldier argues over fig prices with a native Egyptian in broken Demotic. A nearby boy releases a sacred ibis into the river, and no one even blinks. It's a strange harmony, tense at times, but real. Egypt doesn't stop being Egyptian, but it does start writing its prayers in Greek still. Under the surface, the kingdom depends on one thing: control. The Ptolemies rule with a velvet fist. Taxes are high. Bureaucracy is labyrinthine. Peasant revolts simmer in the Theban countryside. But the glamour of Alexandria keeps the spotlight on. And for now, that's enough. So you linger. Just a little longer on the palace rooftop overlooking the sea. Below, ships come and go, bearing goods, gossip, and gods from distant lands. The Ptolemaic dream hums to life under a sunset, painted in gold and rose. The king is dead. Long live the Ptolemies. Asterisk, the sun scorches the dusty plains as you set off eastward, following dusty caravan trails that stretch beyond the horizon. You're headed into the wild, vast lands that once belonged to Persian, now claimed by Seleucus. It's one of Alexander's oldest generals and a man who dreams big. Really big. So big, in fact, that his kingdom will stretch from the Levant all the way into parts of India, an empire so vast you'd need a camel-powered Wi-Fi just to stay connected. Seleucus is a master of grand gestures and rapid expansion. After Alexander's death, he started quietly gathering troops, forming alliances, and retaking lost cities. By the time you catch up to him, he's already carved out the largest chunk of the old empire, stretching from Syria and Mesopotamia across Persia to the edges of the Indus River Valley. Managing this sprawling realm is like juggling flaming torches while riding a bucking horse. One wrong move, and everything burns. You trail Seleucus to his capital, Seleucia Tigris, a brand new city built with Greek-style colonnades, bustling markets, and a blend of Greek and Persian architecture that feels like East meets West in a very crowded coffee shop. He's keen on founding cities all over his territory, not just for power, but to spread Hellenistic culture. Greek becomes the language of administration, while local customs mix in like unexpected spices in a stew. But controlling such an immense territory isn't easy. You watch Seleucus deal with revolts in the east, where local satraps and tribal leaders resist his rule. You hear stories of rebellions in Bactria and Sogdiana far off, places filled with mountains, silk routes, and mercenaries. It's a constant game of diplomacy, force, and bribery. Historians still argue whether Seleucus's attempts at blending cultures were sincere efforts at unity or just clever ways to keep his restless subjects from revolting. One quirky detail: Seleucus is said to have carried a golden horn into battle. No, not a musical instrument, but a symbolic object, possibly a drinking horn or a war trophy. It became his lucky charm, and armies claimed it inspired courage. You wonder if it also made him the ancient world's first lucky mascot owner. Meanwhile, Seleucus's reach extends to the fringes of India. He even negotiates with the Mauryan Empire under Chandragupta Maurya, sealing a peace treaty that exchanges territory for soldiers. You imagine their meetings? A Macedonian general sipping exotic Indian spices, while a Mauryan emperor outlines the deal in a grand hall somewhere dusty and crowded. It's a rare moment of East-West diplomacy, one that shapes the political map for generations. Back in the west of his empire, Seleucus faces challenges from Lysimachus in Thrace and the Ptolemies in Egypt. Borders blur, alliances shift, and every day feels like a chess match where the pieces can also stab you in the back. You witness Seleucus's assassination by Ptolemy Ceraunus, a former ally turned rival. The murder is swift and brutal, a reminder that in the Hellenistic world, trust is often as rare as fresh water in the desert. Despite his violent end, Seleucus's legacy lives on through the Seleucid dynasty, which rules the eastern Mediterranean and much of the Near East for over 2 centuries. His empire's cities become melting pots of cultures, religions, and ideas, places where Greek temples stand alongside Persian palaces, and Zoroastrian fire altars flicker beside Dionysian festivals. You take a quiet moment by the Euphrates River, watching the sun dip behind palm trees, reflecting on how Seleucus's vision of a blended world both shaped and strained the ancient world's delicate balance. And as the night deepens, you drift, thinking of cities like Antioch and Pergamon, places built on ambition, diplomacy, and the restless spirit of a general who reached for the stars and almost caught them. Asterisk. You find yourself trekking north into Macedon and Greece lands, long steeped in marble temples, philosophical debates, and enough olive oil to keep every citizen slippery for centuries. The Antigonid dynasty is trying its best to keep Macedon relevant in a world where power now spills south and east, rather than just north and west. Antigonus I Monothelmus, the one-eyed, because one of his eyes decided to quit the party early, is a thorn in everyone's side. After Ipsus, his son Demetrius grabs the reins, bringing a splash of youthful bravado and equally chaotic hair to the Macedonian throne. You watch as Demetrius fights to keep Macedon's influence alive, juggling Greek city-states that have as much trust in him as a cat has in a bath. Greek cities, especially Athens and Sparta, don't exactly roll out the welcome mat. Athens is trying to claw back its independence after years of Macedonian rule, while Sparta is, well, Sparta, always grumpy. With their unique brand of stubbornness and a government that looks like a council of very serious, very muscled grandpas, you wander through the agoras where politicians shout over market stalls, plotting alliances and revolts. The Macedonian kings attempt diplomacy, but every move seems to trigger a volley of protests or a sneaky assassination attempt. Macedon becomes a kind of political pressure cooker, and you can almost hear the steam whistle. The Antigonids love war, especially naval battles. Demetrius earns the nickname Poliorcetes, or the Besieger, for his love of massive siege engines and relentless city assaults. You imagine giant catapults hurling rocks like ancient baseballs and soldiers shouting, "Duck," while trying not to get pancaked. The Macedonian fleet dominates parts of the Aegean, but keeping control over rebellious islands and Greek city-states proves trickier than expected. Meanwhile, you overhear chatter about the Corinthian Legion, alliance formed to maintain peace and Macedonian dominance. It's a delicate balancing act, like trying to keep a dozen toddlers happy with only one cookie. You hear that historians still argue whether this league was a genuine attempt at unity, or just a front for Macedonian hegemony dressed up in fancy togas. There's also a curious cultural twist. Macedon, once seen as a semi-barbaric backwater by southern Greeks, starts embracing Hellenistic art, philosophy, and theater with surprising enthusiasm. You catch a performance of a Euripides play in Thessaloniki, where actors wear masks with exaggerated expressions, almost like ancient memes designed to make you laugh or cry. You can't help but wonder if the audience is really paying attention or just thinking about dinner. Political intrigue thickens. Queens wield power behind the scenes, and you hear whispers of plots, poisonings, and royal scandals worthy of the juiciest soap operas. One king marries a woman who's rumored to be both his sister and his political advisor. It's a complicated family tree that would make any genealogist dizzy. Yet, Macedon's influence slowly wanes as Rome's shadow looms. You stroll through fortified towns and dusty roads, sensing the shift of power like a slow-moving earthquake. Macedon is no longer the uncontested heavyweight it once was, but it refuses to go quietly. The rugged landscapes echo with the sounds of clashing swords and angry speeches, a reminder that even as the old kingdoms crumble, the spirit of Greece refuses to be tamed. So you sit by a fire one night, watching sparks dance against the stars, and realize that Macedon's story is one of stubborn pride, a kingdom fighting to stay alive in a world racing toward change. Empire by empire, one battle at a time. You drift into the smoky, sun-dappled streets of the Greek city-states Athens, Corinth, and a scattering of islands where the scent of salt water mixes with freshly baked bread. These cities once ruled the Mediterranean with a mix of democracy, philosophy, and the occasional naval blitz. Now, though, they're caught between the ambitions of bigger players, Macedon, the Diadochi kingdoms, and the relentless march of Rome on the horizon. Athens, once the jewel of democracy, is trying to reclaim its independence. You hear debates echoing in the agora, where politicians make speeches full of lofty ideals, subtle jabs at Macedonian overlords. The city's walls are battered but standing, the Parthenon gleaming faintly in the afternoon light, reminding everyone that tight Even in hard times, beauty and ideas endure. Yet freedom isn't free. Athens is squeezed by taxes, alliances, and the constant threat of being dragged back under foreign control. Some citizens grumble that democracy is a nice idea but can't hold up against armies and gold. Others believe in the power of culture. As resistance philosophers like Epicurus teach that tranquility in the mind might be the only true freedom. You wander into the theaters where actors perform new plays laced with political commentary. It's risky business, one wrong joke, and you might find yourself exiled, or worse. But art thrives on tension. The Greeks have always loved a good tragedy, and these days, life seems to be writing them in abundance. Meanwhile, smaller city-states like Corinth and Rhodes balance precariously, twisting alliances like a knotted fishing net. They trade luxuries, wine, olive oil, fine pottery, and also act as mercenaries or naval powers. Rhodes, in particular, builds a powerful fleet, trying to keep trade routes safe from pirates and rival kingdoms. You glimpse their famous Colossus, though mostly in your imagination. Since it's still under construction, the Greek cities also become battlegrounds for ideas. Stoicism rises, teaching endurance and control over passions. Skepticism questions everything, challenging old gods and new rulers alike. Philosophers debate endlessly, often while lounging on stone benches, sipping watered-down wine and occasionally throwing shade at each other in ancient Greek. Religious life is vibrant, but complex. You visit temples where local cults blend with imported gods. Athena might mingle with Isis or Apollo with Dionysus, each wearing a different hat depending on who's in power. Festivals burst with music, dance, and offerings meant to keep the gods happy and the enemies at bay. But it's not all peaceful. You hear whispers of uprisings in city quarters where poverty bites hard and the elite live in marble villas. The tension simmers like a pot on the boil. Occasionally, riots break out, sometimes over food shortages, sometimes sparked by political slogans shouted in the streets. The ruling classes respond with curfews and more guards, but the underlying unrest remains. Historians still argue whether these revolts were cries for genuine democracy or just the first cracks in a system increasingly controlled by oligarchs. And foreign kings, you cross paths with mercenaries who fought for various kings, now wandering with no loyalty but their own coin purses. They swap stories of sieges, betrayals, and battles fought under banners that seem to change with the seasons. The Greek city-states, once the birthplace of Western civilization's golden age, are now more like chess pieces on a vast board, each moving carefully, sometimes rebelliously, but all under the watchful eyes of bigger powers. As night falls, you sit on the steps of the Acropolis, the wind carrying the faint sound of lyres and distant prayers. You realize these cities, despite their struggles, still hold the heartbeat of Greek identity, resilient, stubborn, and quietly defiant. Remember that lion-faced sundial in Athens? It's been watching all this chaos unfold, and you wonder if it's as tired as you are. The moonlight spills silver over the bustling streets of Alexandria, where you wander beneath towering columns and through markets filled with the scent of spices, fresh fish, and freshly rolled papyrus scrolls. This city feels alive, a restless dream stitched from the ambitions of Alexander, the sharp mind of Ptolemy, and the hopes of countless scholars and traders. The waves lap softly against the harbor, where ships rock gently, their sails fluttering like whispered secrets. Alexandria is no ordinary city. It's the crossroads of the ancient world, where Greek merchants haggle with Egyptian priests, Jewish philosophers debate with Babylonian astrologers, and the scent of incense blends with the salty sea breeze. You find yourself drawn to the famous library, not yet at its peak, but already swelling with scrolls from across the known world. Imagine thousands of texts stacked so high they almost touch the sky. A treasure trove of knowledge meant to outlast even the gods. even the gods. You meander past scholars discussing everything from medicine to mathematics. A philosopher debates the nature of the cosmos, while a mathematician sketches strange symbols in the sand, and a poet recites verses that echo in the cool night air. It's a melting pot of ideas, cultures, and whispers of the future. Nearby, the Pharos Lighthouse is under construction. Even now, its scaffolding rises from the island of Pharos like a promise. When finished, will be one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Its light guiding weary sailors home through fog and storm. A beacon of safety and ambition. You pause in a bustling square where statues of Greek gods share space with Egyptian deities, their carved faces peaceful yet enigmatic. This blending of faiths, traditions, and aesthetics marks the heart of the Hellenistic world, where borders blur and identities intertwine. Yet beneath the gleaming marble and scholarly pursuits, the city hums with political tension. The Ptolemaic rulers guard their power jealously, managing delicate alliances, palace intrigues, and occasional uprisings. Queens like Arsinoe wield influence behind closed doors, their ambitions shaping the fate of empires. Historians still argue whether Alexandria's cultural flourishing was a genuine fusion of East and West or a Greek veneer plastered over ancient Egyptian foundations. Maybe it's both a grand experiment in identity, survival, and legacy. You stroll along the harbor, watching fishermen haul in their catch and traders barter goods from distant lands. The aroma of freshly baked bread mingles with the sea air, and the gentle lapping of waves soothes your tired mind. Alexandria isn't just a city. It's a symbol of hope, knowledge, and the restless human spirit. As you settle beneath the stars, the distant beacon of the Pharos promises that, no matter what storms come, there's always a light guiding the way. Asterisk, you find yourself reclining under the shade of an olive tree, the warm breeze carrying the scent of time and distant laughter. Philosophy has gone global, and you're smack dab in the middle of the Hellenistic Age's intellectual revolution. Think of it as the ancient world's version of a TED Talk. But with more togas and fewer PowerPoint slides, Greek thinkers once confined to the city-states, now wandering the vast Hellenistic kingdoms, spreading ideas, debating ethics, and occasionally lecturing anyone who'll listen and some who won't. You overhear a Stoic telling a crowd that the key to happiness is accepting what you can't control, which sounds suspiciously like the philosophy behind your last 2 failed attempts at assembling furniture. Meanwhile, the Epicureans argue that pleasure, properly understood, is the highest good, but only if it doesn't give you a stomachache later. A philosopher nearby debates the merits of atoms and the void, shaking his scroll dramatically as if to say, "You're welcome, modern science." You walk through the streets of cities like Pergamon and Rhodes, where libraries rival Alexandria's, and philosophical schools sprout like wildflowers. Some teach logic and rhetoric, others focus on ethics or natural philosophy. The exchange of ideas is vibrant, fluid, and occasionally heated. Imagine a heated Twitter debate, but performed in person, and with way more gesturing, and far-flung. Bactria, Greek settlers mingle with Central Asian cultures. You catch fragments of Greek dialect mixed with local tongues, creating new languages and customs. You watch as Greek statues sport Central Asian attire, and local artisans craft jewelry with Hellenistic motifs. It's a cultural cocktail with a kick. Monks and religious scholars debate Aristotle's works, sometimes blending his logic with Buddhist or Zoroastrian teachings. Scholars still argue whether this was a harmonious fusion or a confused cultural mashup, but either way, it reshaped philosophical thought across continents. One quirky tidbit some philosophers believed in: cosmic sympathy, the idea that everything in the universe is interconnected. So if you stub your toe, somewhere a star might twinkle in sympathy, or that's how the rumor goes. It's a reminder that ancient thinkers weren't all serious. Some embraced mysticism alongside reason. You listen to lectures under open skies, where students recline on cushions, sipping wine diluted with water, absorbing ideas that will ripple through history for centuries. The air hums with questions about the nature of virtue, the cosmos, and the best way to live, a soothing balm for restless minds as twilight falls. You reflect on how philosophy has transcended borders, becoming a shared language for diverse peoples navigating an uncertain world. It's a conversation that never truly ends, and with that, you feel your eyelids grow heavy, lulled by the gentle cadence of ancient wisdom whispering through the olive branches. You find yourself trudging through misty mountain passes, the air heavy with the scent of wet earth and distant pine. This is the edge of the known world, India's rugged northwest frontier, where Greek ambition meets ancient subcontinent mystery. Here, the Hellenistic story takes a fascinating detour, one filled with elephants, silk, and a blend of cultures. So rich, it feels almost dreamlike. After Alexander's campaigns, Greek settlers didn't just pack up and leave. Instead, some stayed, founding cities in the fertile valleys of the Indus and beyond. You walk past towering stupas alongside marble temples, where Greek inscriptions mingle with Brahmi script. It's a cultural patchwork quilt stitched from distant lands. Greek kings ruled parts of what's now Afghanistan and Pakistan, in a region historians call the Greco-Bactrian and Indo-Greek kingdoms. These rulers minted coins featuring Greek gods wearing Indian headdresses and vice versa. One king, Menander, became famous for embracing Buddhism and even appears in ancient Buddhist texts as a wise and just ruler. It's like a political cross-pollination. Experiments, sometimes messy, often fascinating. You watch a local marketplace where traders barter spices, silk, and precious stones. Their conversations, a jumble of Greek, Sanskrit, and local dialects. The aroma of cardamom and sandalwood fills the air, mixing with the distant chants of monks debating philosophy. Traders bring silk from China and glassware from the Mediterranean, weaving a global economy centuries ahead of its time. War elephants, those majestic yet terrifying giants, roam both battlefields and royal processions. You imagine the noise and chaos when a herd panics mid-battle enough to turn a victory into a scramble of confusion. Somehow, the locals have figured out how to train and use them better, integrating Greek cavalry tactics with Indian military tradition. Historians still argue whether the Indo-Greek kingdoms represented genuine cultural fusion or just pragmatic rule by foreign elites trying to keep peace and collect taxes. Either way, art from this period is wildly eclectic. Sculptures depict Greek gods with lotus flowers, and coins feature Buddha alongside Zeus. You marvel at a statue of Heracles dressed in local robes, holding a club carved like a thunderbolt, but wearing traditional jewelry. Yet political power in these distant realms is fragile. Kingdoms rise and fall, often swallowed by larger empires or fractured by internal disputes. You hear tales of battles fought across mountain valleys, alliances brokered in shadowy palaces, and rulers who spoke several languages but trusted few. Still, the cultural legacy lingers. The blend of Greek and Indian art, religion, and governance leaves a mark that echoes through the centuries, influencing everything from Gandhara sculpture to early Christian iconography. As you rest by a quiet river, watching the sun dip behind misty hills, realize that the Hellenistic footprint in India was a unique chapter 1 of connection, complexity, and curious hybridity. And with that thought, your eyelids grow heavy, lulled by the gentle rhythm of flowing water and the whisper of silk trading caravans. You step lightly onto the rugged terrain of Anatolia, where the ruins of once great cities whisper stories of shifting loyalties and cultural collisions. This is the kingdom of Pergamon, a rising power in the Hellenistic world, ruled by the Attalid dynasty, an upstart family that climbed the ladder through military skill and clever diplomacy. Pergamon is a city of grandeur and innovation, where Libraries rival those of Alexandria, and theaters host plays that mix old Greek classics with new, experimental performances. You wander through marble streets lined with statues, fountains, and vibrant mosaics depicting gods, heroes, and local legends. The city's Acropolis looms above, a fortress and palace complex that commands sweeping views of the fertile valleys. Below, the Attalids pride themselves on being patrons of the arts and sciences. You visit the famous library of Pergamon, where scholars pore over manuscripts and invent new techniques like parchment made from animal skins. A clever alternative to papyrus that will change bookmaking forever. You overhear debates about medicine, astronomy, and rhetoric, all infused with the restless curiosity of the age. Politically, Pergamon walks a tightrope between powerful neighbors. It skillfully aligns itself with Rome, offering military support and strategic alliances that help it survive the chaos of the Diadochi Wars. You watch emissaries arrive from more distant lands, negotiating treaties and exchanging gifts, gold coins, exotic animals, and elaborate jewelry. Yet Pergamon is no mere pawn. Its kings expand their territory in Asia Minor, building roads and fortresses to secure their holdings. You see the construction of the famous altar of Zeus, a massive monument carved with intricate friezes depicting battles between gods and giants. Standing before it, you feel the weight of myth and history blending into a statement of power and identity. The city also hosts festivals and athletic competitions that draw crowds from across the Hellenistic world. You mingle with spectators cheering on chariot races and wrestling matches. The air electric with excitement and the scent of roasted meats. Culturally, Pergamon is a crossroads. Greek, Persian, and local Anatolian influences mingle in art, architecture, and daily life. Temples dedicated to Greek gods sit alongside shrines honoring local deities. Reflecting the kingdom's complex heritage, historians still debate whether Pergamon's success was due to its military prowess, diplomatic savvy, or cultural appeal. Perhaps it was a combination, a city that adapted and thrived by embracing change while honoring tradition as the sun sets. Casting long shadows over the city's marble steps, you feel a sense of calm amid the turmoil, a reminder that even in chaotic times, human creativity and resilience shine brightly. You lean back on a stone bench, listening to the distant strains of a lyre, and let the peaceful rhythms of Pergamon lull you toward rest. You find yourself wandering through the sun-dappled valleys of Thrace, a wild land wedged between the Black Sea and the Balkans, where the air is thick with pine scent and the distant sound of flutes playing tribal melodies. Here, Lysimachus, one of Alexander's generals, carves out his own corner of the Hellenistic world, ruling with a mix of Macedonian force and local tradition. Lysimachus is a warrior king with a reputation for toughness and cunning. You hear tales of his battles against rebellious tribes, his shifting alliances, and his knack for survival in a region that feels like the edge of civilization. His court, perched on a hilltop fortress, buzzes with intrigue as he juggles diplomacy and war. You stroll through Thracian villages, where locals wear animal skins and adorn themselves with intricate jewelry, blending Greek and native styles. Markets hum with barter, where furs, honey, and salted fish change hands. The Thracians are fierce and proud, and while they tolerate Lysimachus's rule, their loyalty is often as unpredictable as the mountain winds. One quirky story floats your way. Lysimachus reportedly drank a potion to cure his love for his wife, Arsinoe. Whether true or just court gossip, it paints a picture of a ruler grappling with human frailty amid the brutal demands of kingship. The political landscape is as rugged as the terrain. Lysimachus faces threats from neighbors and former friends alike. His rivalry with Seleucus culminates in the Battle of Corupedium, where Lysimachus falls, marking a significant shift in the region's power balance. Despite his death, Lysimachus's legacy lingers in the fusion of Greek and Thracian. cultures. His kingdom serves as a bridge between the Mediterranean and the barbarian north, influencing trade routes, military tactics, and cultural exchanges. You reflect on the delicate dance of power and identity in Thraceland, where borders blur, and where the spirit of conquest meets the stubborn will of local traditions. As twilight deepens, you sit by a crackling fire, the stars overhead bright and steady, and let the sounds of the wilderness soothe your mind, carrying you gently towards sleep. You're walking the winding streets of Rhodes, a proud island fortress perched like a sentinel in the Aegean Sea, watching ships sail in and out of its bustling harbor. Rhodes is famous not just for its mighty navy, but for the Colossus, a giant bronze statue that once guarded the harbor's entrance, making it one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. You try to imagine a colossal figure, standing over 30 meters tall, catching the sun's first light and the eyes of every sailor daring to approach. The Rhodians are savvy traders, diplomats, and warriors. Their navy patrols the seas, protecting trade routes from pirates and keeping the delicate balance of power. In the region, you overhear merchants from Egypt bargaining with Greek sailors, all under the watchful eye of city officials who know the value of both diplomacy and muscle. Rhodes also prides itself on law and culture. The island's courts are famous for their fairness, attracting people from across the Mediterranean who seek justice. You sit in a shaded courtyard listening to a magistrate deliver a verdict, impressed by the mix of strictness and reason. The island is a hub of Hellenistic art and science. You wander through workshops where sculptors carve marble statues with breathtaking skill and mathematicians debate geometry and mechanics. One engineer shows off a device that could lift heavy stones, a primitive crane. You think about how such inventions would shape the future. Politically, Rhodes walks a careful line. It stays neutral in many conflicts, using its naval power as a bargaining chip. But neutrality doesn't mean weakness. When war threatens, Rhodes defends its freedom fiercely, mobilizing its fleet with precision and discipline. You notice how the island's culture is a mosaic of influences: Greek, Egyptian, Phoenician, and others blended together into something unique. Festivals celebrate this diversity with music, dance, and feasts that fill the air with joy and energy. Historians still argue whether Rhodes's strength came more from its diplomacy, its navy, or its cultural vitality. Probably all three combined, with a hefty dose of island pride. As the sun sets behind the hills, casting a warm glow over the harbor, you feel the pulse of Rhodes, resilient, resourceful, and ready for whatever the restless seas bring next. You settle down on the shore, listening to waves whisper against the rocks, and let the peaceful sound carry you toward dreams. You step into the smoky, bustling agora of Ephesus, a city famous for its towering temple of Artemis, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Though the temple has suffered damage from fires and invasions, the spirit of the city remains strong, a testament to the Hellenistic world's resilience and grandeur. Ephesus is a melting pot of cultures, religions, and trade, where merchants from Asia Minor, Greece, and beyond meet to barter goods like spices, textiles, and ceramics. The scent of myrrh and frankincense fills the air, mingling with the salty breeze from the nearby Aegean Sea. You stroll past temples, markets, and theaters, observing how Greek architectural styles mix with local influences. The city's streets are alive with philosophers debating ethics, merchants plotting deals, and priests performing rituals to appease gods both old and new. One local historian tells you that Ephesus once hosted massive festivals dedicated to Artemis, drawing crowds from across the Hellenistic world. These celebrations combined religious reverence with gladiatorial games and theatrical performances, a curious mix of piety and spectacle. Politically, Ephesus has seen its share of turmoil. It changes hands between rival Hellenistic kingdoms, each imposing their own systems of governance and taxation. You hear stories of citizen revolts and shifting allegiances, a reminder that control is never permanent in this era. Yet, despite political instability, the city thrives culturally and economically. You catch a glimpse of artisans crafting intricate silver jewelry and potters shaping delicate vases painted with scenes of mythology and daily life. Historians still debate how much Hellenistic culture truly permeated cities like Ephesus, questioning whether local traditions persisted beneath the Greek veneer or were fully absorbed. Either way, the city stands as a vibrant crossroads of ancient civilization. As twilight descends, you find a quiet spot overlooking the harbor. The lights of ships bob in the water, lanterns flickering like fireflies. The distant sound of a flute drifts through the air, mingling with the gentle lapping of waves. You breathe deeply, the weight of history settling softly around you, and feel yourself drifting toward sleep. Carried by the timeless rhythm of the ancient world. The air is thick, with the scent of pine and fresh earth as you make your way through the rugged hills of Macedonia once again. But this time, things feel different, darker, more desperate. Now, the power struggles among the Diadochi kingdoms have reached a fever pitch, and the shadow of Rome creeps ever closer, ready to swallow up what remains of the Hellenistic world. You find yourself in the court of Philip V of Macedon, a king trying to hold on to a shrinking empire while fending off external threats and internal dissent. Philip's ambition is clear, but so are the cracks in his realm. Factions whisper against him. Allies waver, and enemies circle like vultures. The Macedonian army still marches with the echo of past glories. But their spearheads are dulling. Battles against Rome prove costly, draining resources and morale. You watch as Philip negotiates treaties, some more desperate than dignified, trying to buy time in a world that's rapidly changing. Meanwhile, the Greek city-states, once proud and rebellious, now find themselves pawns in Rome's grand game. The once vibrant democracy of Athens is a shell of its former self, controlled by external powers and struggling to find its voice. You hear rumors of the Achaean League, a federation of city-states attempting to resist Roman domination through unity. But their efforts are fragmented and often futile. Historians still debate whether the Hellenistic kingdoms fell because of Rome's superior military and organization, or due to internal weaknesses and infighting. The answer, as usual, is probably a messy mix of both. You walk among the ruins of battlefields and ancient cities, feeling the weight of history pressing down. The statues and temples seem to whisper of a world slipping away, of empires rising and falling like tides. Yet, amid the turmoil, you notice flickers of resilience, philosophers still teaching, artists still creating, and ordinary people striving for normalcy in extraordinary times. As night falls, you sit beneath the stars, the cool breeze carrying the distant sound of a lyre. The world changes, but some things, hope, curiosity, the human spirit remain constant. Your eyelids grow heavy, and you let the soft darkness carry you gently toward rest. You find yourself in the twilight of the Hellenistic era. The ancient world's grand experiment nearing its final chapters. The kingdoms that once spanned continents are fading, their rulers shadows of former glory. The air is thick with the scent of burnt torches and fading incense, as if the gods themselves are dimming their lights. Cleopatra VII reigns supreme in Egypt, the last Ptolemaic queen, a figure as complex and captivating as the land she governs. You watch her navigate the treacherous waters of politics and passion, forging alliances with powerful Romans like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. Her story is one of ambition, charisma, survival, equal parts romance and ruthless strategy. Alexandria remains a beacon of knowledge and culture, though now it stands on the precipice of change. caught between ancient traditions and the rising tide of Roman power. You stroll through its streets where the hum of daily life blends with the whispers of impending empire. Meanwhile, Rome's shadow looms larger each day. The Hellenistic kingdoms, fragmented and weakened, gradually fall under Roman controls, some through conquest, others by diplomacy or marriage. You witness the last flickers of resistance, the final battles, and the slow integration into a new world order. Historians still debate Cleopatra's legacy. Was she a brilliant leader who sought to preserve her kingdom's independence, or a tragic figure undone by forces beyond her control? Perhaps she was both, embodying the complex twilight of an era as you watch the sun set over the Mediterranean, casting golden hues across ancient temples and bustling harbors. You feel the closing of a grand story, a tapestry woven from conquest, culture, conflict, and creation. Now, your journey through the Hellenistic world winds down. The restless spirit of the age settling into the quiet pages of history. The stars begin to twinkle. The soft murmur of the sea lulls your mind, and you feel yourself slipping gently into sleep, carried by the echoes of a world that shaped civilizations. To come *** now, as you settle deeper into your cozy nook, the world around you begins to soften. The sharp edges of history blur into gentle waves of memory, like distant whispers carried on a warm breeze. Imagine the rustle of olive trees swaying softly under a silver moon, the quiet murmur of a river winding through ancient cities, and the faint, steady beat of footsteps on stone streets long since empty. The bustling markets and clashing armies fade, replaced by the serene silence of twilight. The grand temples and towering statues rest beneath a blanket of stars, their stories tucked away like treasured lullabies. You feel the weight of countless lives, philosophers, soldiers, queens, and traders settled gently beside you, their dreams and struggles woven into the fabric of time. Take a deep breath, letting the calm wash over you. In this peaceful moment, the restless ambitions and fierce battles of the Hellenistic world soften into a quiet harmony. The past and present blend, carrying you on a gentle journey through the ages. Let your mind drift freely now, as the whispers of history lull you toward rest. The night embraces you with its cool, comforting hush. And as you close your eyes, know that the stories you've heard will remain silent companions in your dreams, lighting the path to peaceful sleep. Good night.